Hi there, it's Sharon Waxman, the editor of TheWrap, coming to you from TheWrap's 2023 studio at the Sundance Film Festival with NFP. Thank you so much to the cast, to the people who created the film, 20 Days in Mariupol, a very moving and tough documentary about the war in Ukraine. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, starting with the director. Just tell us, yeah, because you think I'm going to get your name right. Probably not.
My name is Mstyslav Chernov. I'm director and cameraman for this film.
Welcome. No, you cut your own.
All right. I'm Michelle Mizner. I'm the producer and editor of the film.
Hi, I'm Evgeniy Maloletka. I'm a photographer.
And I'm Vasilisa Stepanenko. I'm film producer.
Okay, great. So this is a very difficult depiction of a very difficult war that is still going on and where people are dying every day. Tell us why you chose to sort of take this slice, this moment in time, which goes back to the beginning of the war, and tell the story, because the story's not done. It's still ongoing.
I think Mariupol as a city, as one of the events that happened in the beginning of the full-scale Russia's invasion in Ukraine, is extremely symbolic for Ukrainians and historically symbolic, because being a strategically important city for Russia to try to take from Ukraine, it's also had so much tragedy packed in there in this short period of time, over 3 months. And being able to show this tragedy to the world means a lot to us. But also we feel, and we found out only later when we left Mariupol, when we broke out of the siege, only then we found out how much what we did there and what happened there changed the world's perspective on the invasion. So it's also symbolic from that side. But throughout the coverage, throughout these 20 days, the film is called 20 Days in Mariupol, throughout that 20 days we've been sending news dispatches, so quite short packages of videos, 1 minute, 2 minutes, to the world.
Sending them to, putting them on YouTube, where are you putting them?
So Associated,
to AP?
we work for AP.
All of you guys work for AP, not the producers?
Yeah, we are AP team, and Michelle is with the Frontline. So when we left Mariupol, we took out safely around 30 hours, up to 30 hours of footage, and most of it was unpublished. And I felt that we need to do more about Mariupol. We felt quite guilty that we left and Mariupol was still under the siege. People were still dying every day, and I felt that we needed to do more. So collaboration with Frontline started, and we assembled a film out of those hours and hours.
So just to be clear, you were actually working journalists for the Associated Press.
Yes.
But you had all this extra material that you wanted, that you felt like you hadn't totally told the story, that even though you're sending dispatches out to the world every day, basically.
Right. So in the
That's
beginning,
amazing.
it wasn't, when it was shot, it wasn't even intended to be a documentary.
Right.
This was intended to be a news dispatch, daily news dispatches.
Right.
And they were shot this way. So that's partially was a challenge when we left with all this footage. It was to connect them into a narrative, which
So were you all there as a team?
Yes.
These three?
Yeah.
These
And
three.
what was your role?
Yeah, so these journalists were on the
Yeah.
ground in Ukraine, where they are all from, to cover the invasion. And they had a sense that the city of Mariupol would be one of the main targets. And so they went there to cover for the AP. And the city, as you see in the film, the city is surrounded and it becomes impossible for anyone to leave, including them. And they continued filming. Infrastructure is attacked, civilian infrastructure, the things they witnessed. You might remember the maternity bombing, the maternity ward that was bombed. They were there. They were the ones who were on the ground filming it. So they're very humble and will not like admit that the reason why we have documented evidence of these potential war crimes is because they were on the ground filming it. As he said, the internet became very sporadic, and so they had to find places where they could upload the stories, send them out to the world. They were only able to get some out, but really important footage that everyone saw. And then when they left, he had 30 hours of footage that told a real story about the 20 days that they were there. So
where did you
So I
get
came
involved?
in as an editor. So I worked
see.
for Frontline PBS.
Yes.
And we started working with Mstyslav, who actually had a pretty clear vision for how the story could come together. And we assembled a film, and we didn't know if it would be a short at first, and then we realized that it actually did, it could really fill a 90-minute feature. And so we put that together, and it shows both how I think that what was like interesting about collaborating as somebody who wasn't on the ground with them, and why it's important sometimes to work in a team where you aren't. I was looking at the footage in a way that I could see Mstislav's like personality shine through in the way that he was filming things, the way that a tragedy would happen and he would drop the camera and it would still be, you could just like feel the emotion coming from him and get to know him in that way. So he became sort of like the perspective through which you're seeing this unfold. You see Zhenya and Vasilisa, working alongside each other, really harrowing events, hard conditions, and so we're able to show that in the film.
I wanted to ask about this because this is something that we've only just started, I think, scratching the surface about what is the impact to the bearing of witness, and your job is to go out and watch people suffer, and document it. And I understand that the human impulse to feel the need to document it so that for all sorts of reasons, so that the world will see it and they will stop it, which they haven't, or history will have that for all time to be able to refer to it. So it's a responsibility, but there's clearly a very serious toll on the people who put themselves in, and also all the medical workers and all the all the people, not to mention the people who are actually going through it. Just watching a little girl staring into your camera and crying, it's unbearable. She didn't even die. She's not even wounded. She's just so torn up, and she's 5, she's 6. It's almost it's hard to watch. So I can only imagine what it's like. I can't imagine what it's like, is what I'm saying, to live through. So I want to ask all of you guys who did that, like, what was the toll? What was the impact on each of you? Let's start in the back, and then Mstyslav, you can.
It's hard to imagine, that we saw. Like, I remember my feelings that when we were here and when we watched all the scenes, when we watched how the children died, the only thing that I had is to show it to the whole world, to let them understand what's going on, how it can go on in our time in 21st century. So it was only one my thought. That's why, yes, personally I felt big pain, like Ukrainian, like a human, like everyone in this world. But I understood that it's really important, that every one of us understood it. So that's why we did it, and now that this film could watch everyone, it's really, really important.
I'll tell you that my hometown, the name of the city is Berdyansk. It's next on the west from Mariupol, and actually it's mostly my homeland, where I grew up. And the people whom we filmed, photographed, and in these such conditions, in this pain, not like we just, some actors. It just you understood on the ground that this is real souls who are passed away, and these kids, who just, and how the parents bring them already dead to the hospital, and doctors try to resuscitate them, do the reanimation processes. You document this, and with the tears in the eyes, like you continue to do this, and the doctors screaming, show this to Putin because they might to see this, because they killing Ukrainians at that time, and this is really hard to understand for ourselves as well, that this is, like our relatives, our friends. It's happened with all of us, all around Ukraine, all around the contact line, and what we witnessed it in just one short period of time, and that's it. But it's happened all around the area, like where Russia invade.
Yeah, it's been almost a year. The film is called 20 Days. So you look at these 20 days and you know what happened after, every day in Ukraine. That is, nothing changed. It was happening every day, what you see. But also, we felt obligation as journalists, but as well as Ukrainians. This is our community, this is our country, and we do feel an obligation to keep telling these stories, to make sure that everything that was possible to document will stay in history. So maybe in 50 years of time or in 100 years of time, someone who would ask, what happened? So, how that invasion started, what happened to Mariupol, will go and see this and will know how terrible the war is, how unbearable human pain is. And from this perspective, although the film is told from the perspective of a journalist, it's still really about people and about Mariupol's residents. And I think our feelings as feelings of journalists or documentary makers right now is quite secondary. It's very important for it not to stand on the way for the audience to feel what actually residents of Mariupol felt.
Thank you. Well, the film is very intense. It's sometimes difficult to watch, but it's important for that reason. So thank you for bringing your film to Sundance, 20 Days in Mariupol. It's going to be out on Frontline and PBS.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, later this year, I presume.
Yes,
since it's
later
done.
this year. Hopefully we'll,
Yeah.
we'll see what life it takes over the next few months. And later this year,
Yeah.
we'll be airing on PBS.
Well, thank you for the film, and thanks for coming to our studio.
Thanks very much.